In Central Park this afternoon, people gathered for a circle of unity, a way to remember the events of October 7th, 2 years ago.
In every generation, they try to annihilate us. We prevailed. Okay. And I will say to the world that we are here to stay, whether you like it or not.
My heart breaks quite often since October 7th, but as a Jewish people, we won't be broken.
But 2 years ago, Hamas slaughtered 1,200 Jews in a surprise attack on Israel and crossed back into Gaza with 251 captives. Some of those kidnapped have been freed, many were killed, and 48 remain in captivity. Peace talks are once again underway in Egypt. President Trump is hopeful that a deal will be reached by the end of the week to return those still being held by Hamas in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. Today, Trump met with Idan Alexander at the Oval Office. Alexander, who's from Tenafly, was held by Hamas for 584 days and is believed to have been the last living American in captivity. But Ruby Khan's son, Itai, remains in captivity. He was killed on October 7th.
I think after 2 years as a U.S. taxpayer, I think it's time for the administration, as it has in the past, emphasizes the U.S. citizens that are still in captivity, including my son.
Part of a peace deal would also mean Israel stopping its assault on Hamas, a war that's left 67,000 people dead, according to the Gazan Health Ministry, which is controlled by Hamas. The war has detractors in Israel and around the world. This afternoon, a protest against the war in Israel outside the Israeli consulate in Midtown.
We need to take a stand now.
And there is anger, fear, and resentment on both sides of the issue, and immense sadness that is just as palpable today, 2 years after that October 7th attack. Live in Midtown, Lauren Glassberg, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Pain still so raw. Lauren, thank you. It is just after midnight in Israel right now, and there are people there paying tribute in Tel Aviv at what has become known as Hostage Square.
ABC News correspondent Ian Pannell is there live. And Ian, I know it's been a day of remembrance there. I'm sure quite emotional.
Yeah, a day of raw emotion for so many people, not just the people who are directly affected by this, but I think for all Israelis, this was a moment that totally shocked the nation, but certainly raw grief. We've seen tears, we've seen people hugging each other, people standing silently, just reflecting on what happened 2 years ago. Here in Hostage Square, during the daytime, people have come, they're looking at this countdown clock, which has been counting the sheer number of days, 731 days since 251 hostages were taken. We went down to the Nova Music Festival site. Remember, this was a music festival where Hamas militants swept in early on the morning of October 7th, 2023, opening fire in cold blood against these unarmed partygoers, murdering 378 people. Scenes of terror and chaos there. Now you see these placards planted into the ground, one for each person who was killed. Many people were taken from there. More than 40 hostages were taken. 10 of the living hostages still believed to be held in Gaza. That's 10 of the 20 came from that music festival. We talked to one of the family members today, Udi Garen. He talked to us about his cousin, who was one of the defenders on one of those kibbutzim. He stood there, stood his ground, even though he was killed by Hamas militants. And I asked him what his take was on the discussions now underway in Egypt.
You know, I want to be optimistic, but we've been here before. Maybe not this close, but these past 2 years have been a horrible roller coaster of the type I don't wish to my worst enemies.
What was it like 2 years ago? What was that morning like as an Israeli and as a family member whose cousin was killed?
And this hatred that just flowed in uncontrollably. This was, it really was just the worst of humanity.
And I think you hear those kind of sentiments from so many people. They just genuinely couldn't understand the horror that was unleashed upon them. So we have these talks underway. Day 3 gets underway, well, later in the day here, tomorrow for you guys. And it looks like things are ramping up. We're now going to have some serious delegates from the US, we're going to have Steve Witkoff, President Trump's senior negotiator, together with Jared Kushner, his son-in-law. But you're also going to see the Qatari Prime Minister, a senior delegation from Turkey, and you've also got very senior officials from Egypt. They are going to have to now close the gap between the Israeli and Hamas delegations. President Trump wants an agreement on phase one, the release of all remaining hostages, partial withdrawal of Israeli forces, and the release of some Palestinian prisoners by this week. So the pressure is really on. And what makes it feel so different this time is President Trump has managed to get this coalition, not just of Europeans, but of Arab and Muslim countries, all unified, all pressuring Israel and Hamas to compromise and to come to some kind of agreement. So we watch and wait, as does everyone here. 2 years since that terrible attack, people are just waiting for this long nightmare to be over.